Single dad. Fired. Saved an elderly wheelchair user. And had no idea the man's daughter was a millionaire heiress. Miguel Reyes was carrying a heavy bag of cement when he heard the scream. It was sharp, desperate, coming from the street right in front of a construction site in San Antonio, Texas. He dropped everything and ran to the metal fence. On the other side of the sidewalk, an elderly man in a wheelchair was stuck in the middle of the road. The wheels had locked, and a delivery truck was coming down the hill fast. Real fast. There was no time to think. Miguel jumped the fence, crossed the street running, and pushed the wheelchair hard toward the sidewalk. The old man was thrown to the side. Miguel, too. The truck passed just inches from both of them, kicking up dust and leaving a heavy silence in the air. Miguel got up first. He was breathing fast. His heart was pounding. He looked at the old man, who had fallen sideways, still strapped to the chair. Miguel ran to him. "Sir, are you okay?" The elderly man looked up with wide eyes, still in shock. It took him a few seconds to speak. "You saved me." Miguel helped the man sit up straight in the chair, fixed the brakes, and checked if he was hurt. Only then did he notice that several people were watching. Some were taking photos. Others were recording videos. Miguel didn't care. He just waved at the old man, who was still looking at him with deep gratitude. "You take care now," Miguel said before running back to the site. But when Miguel crossed back over the fence, his boss was already waiting. Arms crossed, face tight. "You left your post," the man said. Miguel frowned. "I saved someone's life. You dropped the material. You walked off without permission. You left the others waiting. This isn't charity, it's a job." Miguel felt the anger rising inside him, but he kept it under control. The man was going to die. "And I don't care. You're fired." Those words hit like a punch to the stomach. Miguel stood still, trying to process what just happened. Around him, the other workers had stopped. Some looked down. Others just watched in silence. "You're joking," Miguel said. "Get your things and leave. Right now." Miguel clenched his fists. He wanted to yell. He wanted to hit something. But he knew it wouldn't change anything. So he just turned around, went to the locker room, grabbed his backpack, and walked out without looking back. The street was quiet. The old man was already gone. Miguel walked to the bus stop with his head low and his chest tight. He was 34 years old. He had a daughter to take care of. And he had just lost the only job he had. His daughter, Sophia, was 8 years old. She had no idea what had just happened. She was probably at school right now, laughing with her friends, drawing something in her notebook, completely unaware that her father's world had just fallen apart. Miguel sat on the bench at the bus stop and stared at the ground. Miguel arrived home earlier than usual. Sophia was sitting on the old couch in the living room, watching cartoons on the small used television her father had bought months ago. When she saw him, she smiled wide. "Dad, you're home early today." He forced a smile and left his backpack on the floor. "Yeah, baby, I'm home." Sophia was 8 years old, with dark brown hair pulled into a messy ponytail and big, smart eyes. She was everything Miguel had. Since her mother passed away 3 years ago, he had promised himself he would do everything possible and impossible to give her a decent life. But right now, sitting next to her on that couch, Miguel felt like he had failed. "Dad, what are we having for dinner tonight?" He looked at her and saw the innocence in those eyes. Sophia didn't know anything. She didn't know he was unemployed. She didn't know the little money left from his last paycheck would barely last one more week. She had no idea her father was broken inside. "I'll make pasta. You like that, right?" She nodded happily and turned back to the TV. Miguel went to the kitchen, opened the cabinet, and looked at the nearly empty shelves. 1 box of pasta, 1 can of tomato sauce, half a bag of rice. Nothing else. He leaned his hands on the sink and closed his eyes. He tried not to fall apart, but it was hard. It was very hard. That night, after Sophia went to sleep, Miguel stayed awake in the living room. The lights were off. Only the glow from the street lamp outside came through the window. He picked up his phone and opened job search apps. He uploaded his resume to 3 different websites. He sent messages to people he knew, but he already knew it wouldn't be easy. It never was. He looked toward the room where Sophia was sleeping. The door was halfway open. He could see her small shape under the thin blanket. Miguel felt a tightness in his chest that he couldn't shake. She deserved more. She deserved a better house, better food, new clothes, a father who didn't fail her. But he had failed her, and now he had to fix it. In the days that followed, Miguel left early every morning, dropped Sophia off at school, and spent the entire day looking for work. He knocked on the doors of stores, markets, and other construction sites. The answer was always the same. We're not hiring right now. Or worse, we'll be in touch. 1 week later, the money was gone. Miguel had to ask his neighbor, Mrs. Carmen, for help buying food. She gave what she could. Rice, beans, eggs. Miguel thanked her, but the shame burned inside him like fire. He had no way of knowing that at that same moment, on the other side of the city, someone was learning who he was and what had happened to him. Valentina Herrera was in her penthouse office when her phone rang. It was the hospital. Her father had been in an incident on the street, but he was okay. She dropped everything and rushed over. When she walked into the room, her father, Don Ernesto, was sitting up in the hospital bed. His arm was bandaged and his face was still pale, but he smiled when he saw her. "Mija, I'm fine." Valentina sat on the edge of the bed, keeping her voice steady. "What happened?" "The wheels locked. I was in the middle of the street. A truck was coming and a man saved me." "What man?" "I don't know his name. He was a construction worker. He dropped everything, jumped a fence, and pushed me to safety. If it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be here." Valentina was quiet for a moment. She looked at her father, at the bandage on his arm, at the wheelchair leaning against the wall. Someone had saved her father's life, and she didn't even know who he was. "Did you talk to him?" "Barely. He helped me, asked if I was okay, and ran back to work." Valentina nodded slowly. After making sure her father was truly all right, she left the hospital with one single thing on her mind. She needed to find that man. She was not the kind of person who left things to chance. And right now, she had a debt to pay. Back at her office, Valentina asked her assistant to pull security camera footage from the area. Within a few hours, she had everything. Videos of the incident from different angles. And in the middle of it all, the face of the man. He was young, maybe his mid-30s. Strong jaw, serious expression. Work clothes covered in cement dust. He didn't hesitate. He just acted. Valentina zoomed in on the image and studied the details. There was something in the way he moved, in the way he helped her father, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. As if saving lives mattered more than anything else. She asked her team to dig deeper. Name, address, background. In less than 2 days, she had a full report on her desk. Miguel Reyes, 34 years old, construction worker, single father, 1 daughter, 8 years old, widower, lived in a modest neighborhood on the south side of San Antonio. No criminal record, no major debts, just a regular man trying to survive. But what caught Valentina's attention most was the last detail in the report. Miguel had been fired on the same day he saved Don Ernesto. His supervisor dismissed him for leaving his post without permission. Valentina read that line 3 times. Then she closed the folder and stared out the office window. The city stretched out below. Buildings, cars, millions of people. And somewhere in all of that, a man had lost his job for saving her father's life. Valentina couldn't stop thinking about it. She had everything. Money, power, influence, connections. And he had lost everything for doing the right thing. For the first time in a long time, she felt something different. Not pity, not guilt. Something closer to genuine curiosity. Who was this man, really? What did he think about? How did he live? She wanted to know. She needed to know. And then she made a decision. She wasn't going to send flowers. She wasn't going to wire money to his account. She wasn't going to do any of the things that people like her usually did in situations like this. She was going to find him in person, without revealing who she was, without using her last name, without showing her power or her wealth. She was going to meet Miguel Reyes as a regular person, and she was going to find out if people like him still existed in this world. Valentina planned everything down to the smallest detail. She traded her luxury car for a simple used sedan. She put away her jewelry. She wore jeans, sneakers, and a plain blouse. She pulled her hair into a ponytail. She looked in the mirror and saw someone she didn't recognize. Someone ordinary. Someone invisible. That was exactly what she needed. She knew where Miguel lived. She knew his schedule. She knew that every morning he dropped his daughter off at school and then headed downtown, where he spent his days looking for work. Valentina chose a small coffee shop near the school, a quiet, simple place where she could wait without drawing attention. On the first morning, Valentina just watched. Miguel walked past the sidewalk, holding Sophia's hand. The little girl was talking with energy, gesturing with her free hand. He listened closely, smiling every now and then. There was something genuine there, something Valentina rarely saw in the world she lived in. On the second morning, she walked into the coffee shop and ordered an espresso. She sat near the window. Miguel passed by again. This time he stopped in front of the shop and looked inside. Valentina pretended to scroll through her phone. He hesitated but didn't come in. On the third morning, she took her chance. Miguel walked into the coffee shop, looking tired. He went to the counter and ordered a black coffee. He paid with coins. Valentina noticed that. He was barely getting by, but still carrying himself with dignity. She waited for him to sit down. He was alone at a small table near the door, looking out the window, cup held in both hands. Valentina took a deep breath, stood up, and walked over. "Excuse me, is this seat taken?" Miguel looked up, surprised. She was attractive, with dark hair and sharp eyes, but there was something more, something in the way she carried herself. Valentina caught herself and relaxed her posture. "No, go ahead." She sat down and placed her cup on the table. "Sorry to bother you. The place is packed today." Miguel looked around. The coffee shop was nearly empty. She realized a mistake, but she smiled lightly. "Okay, I lied. I just don't like drinking coffee alone." He smiled back, a tired smile, but a real one. They sat in silence for a few seconds. Valentina turned her cup slowly, looking for something to say. "Do you live around here?" "Yeah. You?" "I just moved to the area." It wasn't true, but it was necessary. Miguel nodded and took a sip of his coffee. Valentina noticed how carefully he held the cup, like someone who couldn't afford to waste a single drop. "Do you work nearby?" The question came out before she thought about it. Miguel looked down. "I used to, looking for something new now." She felt the weight in his answer. She knew exactly what had happened, but she couldn't show it. "I get that. I'm looking too. The market is rough right now." Miguel looked at her with interest. "What kind of work were you in?" Valentina hesitated. She needed to improvise. Administrative stuff. Nothing too exciting. He nodded. He seemed relieved to not be alone in it. "I was in construction," he said. "Something happened at the job." "What happened?" Miguel went quiet for a moment. Then he told her. Not everything, but enough. He talked about the old man, the truck, the wheelchair, the firing. He spoke without drama, just facts. Valentina listened without interrupting. She pretended to be surprised, pretended to be angry on his behalf. But inside, something was shifting. Hearing the story directly from him was different from reading it in a report. It was real. It was human. "That's awful," she said. And for the first time in that conversation, she wasn't pretending. Miguel shrugged. "That's life. You keep moving." "Do you have family?" Valentina asked. He nodded. "A daughter, 8 years old. She's the reason I keep going." Valentina felt something tighten in her chest. There was a strength in this man, a quiet kind of resistance. He wasn't asking for pity. He wasn't giving up. He was just moving forward. That impressed her more than anything she had ever seen. They talked for a while about small things and big things. When Miguel stood up to leave, Valentina asked a question she had been planning since the beginning. "Do you come here every day?" He paused. "Most days." "Why?" "Because I come here too, and it would be nice to have company." Miguel looked at her for a moment. Then he smiled. A small smile, but a real one. "Yeah, it would." And he left. Valentina stayed in her seat, watching through the window as he disappeared into the crowd. She felt something strange, something she hadn't expected. She was curious about him, but she was also interested in him, and that scared her, because this was not part of the plan. She had come to find out if good people still existed. She had found her answer, but now she was sitting in a quiet coffee shop with a warm cup going cold in front of her, thinking about a man who paid for his coffee with coins and still smiled like the world hadn't beaten him yet. She told herself it was nothing. She didn't believe it. The days that followed were unlike anything Valentina had ever experienced. Every morning she went to the coffee shop. Every morning Miguel was there. They talked about work, about life, about the small things that, together, formed something bigger. Valentina learned that Miguel woke up at 5 in the morning to make Sophia's breakfast, that he read her a story every night, no matter how tired he was, that he never complained, even when he had every reason to. Miguel learned that Valentina liked her coffee strong, that she was quiet but sharp, that there was something about her he couldn't quite figure out, a hidden layer, a mystery. One afternoon, after another round of failed job interviews, Miguel came back to the coffee shop earlier than usual. Valentina was already there. She saw the frustration on his face right away. Bad day? Very. She didn't say anything. She just pushed her cup across the table toward him. Miguel looked surprised. Take it. You need it more than I do. He hesitated, but reached for it. He took a sip and closed his eyes. When he opened them, something had shifted. He looked lighter. Thank you. You don't have to thank me. There was a pause. Then Miguel said, I don't know much about you. Valentina felt her heart speed up. She had rehearsed answers for this. But now, sitting across from him, she didn't want to lie. What do you want to know? Everything, he said simply. Do you have family? Where are you from? Why are you here? Valentina took a slow breath. My dad is still alive. My mom passed away a long time ago. I came here because I needed a fresh start. That wasn't a lie. Not entirely. Miguel nodded. I understand that. Sometimes you need distance to see things clearly. She looked at him and realized he wasn't judging her. He wasn't pushing. He was just listening, just accepting. And that was rare. Very rare. In the weeks that followed, the connection between them grew. Miguel started opening up more about Sophia, about his fears, about what it meant to be both a father and a mother at the same time. Valentina listened carefully, and she caught herself thinking about him when they weren't together, in her big office, in her quiet apartment, in the middle of meetings that used to feel important. One day, Miguel made an unexpected offer. Sophia wants to meet you. Valentina almost choked on her coffee. What? I told her about you. She got curious. She wants to know who the woman is that drinks coffee with her dad. Valentina didn't know what to say. Meeting Sophia made everything more real, more complicated, more dangerous. I don't know if that's a good idea, she said. Please, just lunch. Nothing big. She looked into his eyes and saw hope. Real hope. Miguel wanted this. And Valentina, despite all her fear, wanted it too. Okay, she said quietly. She told herself she could handle it. She was wrong. The lunch was at a simple diner near Sophia's school. Miguel was nervous. So was Valentina. But when Sophia walked in, everything changed. The little girl was exactly how Valentina had imagined her, full of energy, talkative, curious about everything. She looked at Valentina with those big brown eyes and smiled without hesitation. You're pretty, Sophia said. Valentina laughed softly. Thank you. So are you. Sophia sat next to her father and started talking without stopping, about her teacher, about her best friend, about the drawing she had made that week. Miguel just sat there watching, smiling quietly, and Valentina found herself watching both of them, the way Miguel listened to his daughter, the way Sophia looked up at her father with complete admiration. It was a small family, a simple one, but it was whole. For the first time in her life, Valentina felt something she didn't expect. Envy, not for money, not for power, for that connection, for that kind of love that asked for nothing in return. When lunch was over, Sophia hugged Valentina, without warning. I like you. Can you come again? Valentina looked at Miguel. He was waiting for her answer, and she knew she couldn't turn back anymore. Of course I can, she said. That night, alone in her penthouse apartment, Valentina stood by the window. The city glittered below, but she felt nothing except empty, because on the other side of the city, in a small and simple house, there was something she had never had, and now she wanted it more than anything she owned. The more time Valentina spent with Miguel, the harder it became to keep the lie going. She had built a false life, a character, and now that character was falling in love, because that was it. She knew it. She was falling in love with Miguel, with the way he cared for Sofia, with the dignity he held on to even when he had almost nothing, with the kindness that expected nothing in return. He was everything the men in her world were not, and that destroyed her from the inside, because she was lying. The bigger the feelings grew, the bigger the lie felt. One evening, after another meeting at the coffee shop, Miguel walked her to the bus stop. It was raining. He shared his umbrella. They stood close together, waiting. Then he spoke. I like you. Valentina felt her heart stop. I know I don't have much to offer. I know I'm just an unemployed guy with a daughter and a complicated life. But I like you. For real. She looked at him. She could see everything in his face. The honesty, the vulnerability. Miguel was opening himself completely, and she was standing there with a secret she hadn't told him. I like you too, Valentina said, and it was the truth. Miguel smiled and moved closer. Valentina knew what was coming. She could step back. She didn't want to. They kissed in the rain, and it was perfect, and it was terrible, because she knew it couldn't last. Not like this, not with lies between them. In the days that followed, the guilt grew heavier. Valentina barely slept. She kept thinking about telling him the truth. But how? How could she explain that she had investigated him before they ever met? That she had known everything from the beginning? That she was the daughter of the man he had saved? She knew Miguel would feel betrayed, used, and he might never forgive her. But continuing to lie was also impossible. She was trapped between what she felt and what she was hiding, and she had no idea how to get out without destroying everything. Until the day everything fell apart on its own. It was a Saturday morning. Valentina had plans to have lunch with Miguel and Sofia. But that morning, Don Ernesto called. He needed her urgently. A problem with the company. She couldn't ignore it. She called Miguel, made up an excuse, and canceled. He understood. He always understood. And that only made everything worse. Valentina drove to her father's office building. Don Ernesto was in the conference room, going through contracts. When he saw her, he smiled. Mija, I need your eyes on these documents. They worked together for hours. Then Don Ernesto leaned back in his chair and looked at her. You seem different lately. Valentina looked up. What do you mean? Lighter, happier. She didn't know what to say. Don Ernesto was sharp. He always had been. Did you meet someone? He asked. She hesitated, then nodded. Yes. Is it serious? Very. Don Ernesto smiled warmly. Then I want to meet him. Valentina felt panic rise in her chest. Dad, it's not that simple. Why not? If it's serious, I want to meet the man who won my daughter's heart. She couldn't find a way to say no, so she agreed, and she left his office with her heart pounding. That night, she called Miguel. She asked him to come to her apartment the next day. He was surprised. She had never invited him over before, but he said yes. On Sunday, Miguel arrived at the address she had given him and stopped in front of the building. It was a luxury high-rise. Impressive, expensive. He looked at the paper in his hand. Checked the address again. Same one. He took the elevator to the top floor, rang the bell, and when the door opened, he saw Valentina. But he also saw something else. The apartment was enormous. Expensive artwork on the walls. Designer furniture. A panoramic view of the entire city stretching out behind her. Miguel looked around slowly. Then he looked at her. Whose place is this? Mine, she said. He took a step back. What do you mean, yours? Valentina took a long breath. Miguel, I need to tell you something. He looked at her carefully. Something in her voice told him what was coming. You lied to me, he said. It wasn't a question. I didn't lie. I just didn't tell you everything. Who are you? Valentina closed her eyes. My name is Valentina Herrera. I'm the heiress of Herrera Holdings. And I knew who you were before we ever met. The silence that followed was heavy. Miguel stared at her with an expression Valentina had never seen on his face before. Pain, anger, disappointment all at once. You knew, he said quietly. Yes, from the beginning. Why? Valentina felt the tears building. Because you saved my father, and I needed to know who you were. Miguel went very still. Your father, he said slowly. The old man, the wheelchair. Yes, he's my father. The truth landed like something dropped from a great height. Miguel ran a hand over his face, trying to process everything. Then he looked at her again. So everything was a lie? Not everything. Valentina said quickly, what I feel for you is real. Everything that happened between us is real. But you lied about who you are, about why you came to me, about everything. I know. She couldn't hold the tears back anymore. I know I was wrong. Please let me explain. Explain what? That you came to me out of pity? Out of guilt? That I was some kind of charity project for you? No, that's not what this was. Then what was it? Valentina breathed deep and told him the truth. I wanted to meet the man who put my father's life above his own job. I wanted to know if people like that still existed. And when I met you, when I saw who you really were, I fell in love with you. Miguel stood still. Her words echoed in the room. He was still hurt. He still felt betrayed. But the words were real. He could feel it. You should have told me, Miguel said, his voice low but steady. I know. I should have. But I was scared. Scared of what? Of losing you. Miguel looked at her for a long moment. And you don't think you've lost me now? Valentina didn't answer. Because she didn't know. Miguel turned toward the door. His hand reached for the handle. But then he heard a voice behind him. He turned around and froze. There in the entrance to the living room, in a wheelchair, was the elderly man. The man from the street. The man Miguel had saved. Don Ernesto looked at Miguel and smiled slowly. It's you, the old man said softly. Miguel couldn't speak. Don Ernesto moved his wheelchair forward, rolling it carefully with both hands. I didn't know your name. I didn't know where you lived. But I never forgot your face. You saved my life. Miguel looked from Don Ernesto to Valentina, then back to the old man. I just did what anyone would do, he said quietly. Don Ernesto shook his head. No, not anyone. You lost your job because of me, and you didn't hesitate for a second. Miguel felt the weight of those words settle on him. Don Ernesto reached out his hand. Miguel took it. Thank you, the old man said. Thank you for giving me more time with my daughter. Valentina stood to the side, watching. Tears were running down her face. Don Ernesto looked at her, then at Miguel. She told you who she is? Miguel nodded. She did. And are you angry with her? Miguel paused. I don't know yet. Don Ernesto smiled at that honest answer. My daughter is stubborn. She's controlling. She always needs to know everything before she makes a move. He glanced at Valentina. But she's also honest. When she loves someone, she loves completely. He looked back at Miguel. And I know she loves you. Valentina lowered her head. Miguel stood quietly listening. Don Ernesto continued. I don't know what happened between the two of you, but I know one thing. You are the kind of man I always hoped my daughter would find. Someone with real character. Someone who puts people above everything else. He paused. Please don't waste this. Miguel looked at Valentina. She was standing there, completely open. No masks. No carefully chosen words. Just the truth. And the truth was that she was in love with him as much as he was with her. Miguel breathed in slowly. You should have told me, he said again, looking straight at her. She nodded. I know. But I think I understand why you didn't. Valentina looked up, surprised. Miguel took one step toward her. I would have been scared too. Scared of ruining something that finally made sense. He stopped right in front of her. I don't know if I can forget that you lied. but I know what I feel for you is real, and I don't want to throw that away." Valentina started to cry, not from sadness, from relief, from gratitude, from love. Miguel held out his hand. She took it. "Can we start over?" he asked. No lies this time. Valentina nodded, unable to speak. "No lies," she whispered. Don Ernesto, watching from the doorway, smiled to himself. Then quietly, he turned his wheelchair around and rolled out of the room, leaving them alone. Miguel pulled Valentina close. She leaned her head against his chest. "I love you," she whispered. "I love you too," he said. And for the first time in a very long time, both of them felt exactly where they were supposed to be. This is the kind of story that reminds us that real people still exist in this world. That goodness still exists. That one small act of courage can change the lives of two entire families forever. If you're watching this on Addictive Stories, then you already know that the best stories aren't about money or power. They're about moments, about choices, about the kind of person you are when nobody is watching. Miguel didn't jump that fence for a reward. He jumped it because a man needed help. And everything else, the loss, the pain, the long, difficult weeks, all of it led him to something he never expected. Love. Real love. The kind that doesn't come with conditions. The kind that waits for you, even when you don't know it's looking. Don Ernesto sat in the hallway, listening to the quiet that had settled over the apartment. He closed his eyes. He had almost died that day on the street. But instead, something new had begun. The weeks after that conversation were not easy. Even though Miguel had chosen to stay, even though he had taken her hand, the trust had to be rebuilt piece by piece. And that took time. There were nights when Miguel would go quiet, when Valentina could see him thinking, processing, remembering the moment he realized she had known everything from the start. She never pushed. She waited. She showed up every day. She stopped hiding who she was. She brought him to her real world slowly, carefully, not to impress him, but because she wanted to be honest from that point forward. The first time she told him how large her father's company was, Miguel went silent for a long time. "Does that change anything for you?" she asked. "No," he said, and he meant it, but it changed things for him in a different way. It made him more aware of the distance between their lives. He didn't want charity. He didn't want to be someone she helped out of guilt. He wanted to be her equal. One evening, he said it plainly. "I don't want to be a project, Valentina. I don't want to be something you fix." She looked at him for a long time. "You're not a project," she said. "You're the person who taught me what it means to be a decent human being." He didn't answer right away, but something in his eyes softened. Sophia, who had been listening from the hallway, walked in and sat between them on the couch. "Are you two fighting?" she asked. "No," both of them said at the same time. Sophia nodded seriously. "Good, because I already told my teacher about you, Valentina." "You told your teacher about me?" Valentina asked, surprised. Sophia nodded very seriously. "I said my dad found a nice lady who makes him smile. And my teacher said that was the best news she'd heard all week." Miguel covered his face with his hand, embarrassed. Valentina laughed. It was a real laugh, the kind that came from somewhere deep. Sophia looked at both of them and smiled, satisfied. These were the moments that changed everything. Not the grand ones, not the dramatic ones, the small ones, the ones that happened in a living room at the end of a long day. Valentina began spending more time with both of them. She showed up at Sophia's school events. She helped Miguel study for a property management certification he had started online. She never did it to show off. She did it because she wanted to be there. Don Ernesto noticed a change in his daughter. One afternoon, when Valentina came to visit him, he poured 2 cups of tea and sat across from her. "You're different," he said. "You keep saying that," she replied with a smile. "Because it keeps being true." He looked at her carefully. "You were always good at your work, Mija, but you were closed, like a building with all the windows shut." Valentina looked down at her cup. "And now?" she asked quietly. Don Ernesto smiled. "Now the windows are open." Valentina didn't say anything. She just held the warm cup in both hands and thought about a man who had done the same thing in a small coffee shop weeks ago. Some things travel in circles. Miguel got a job offer 3 weeks later. It wasn't in construction. A small property management company near downtown San Antonio was looking for a site coordinator, someone who could organize crews, track materials, talk clients. He had never done that exact job before, but the skills were there. He applied. He got called in. He went wearing the only clean button-down shirt he owned. He got the job. He called Valentina from the parking lot right after the interview. "I got it," he said. She was quiet for a second. Then, "I knew you would. You sound surprised that I called you first." "I'm not surprised," she said. "I'm glad." That night, Miguel took Sofia to her favorite taco place to celebrate. She ordered 3 tacos and ate every single bite. She told him he deserved it, that he was the best dad in the world. Miguel looked at his daughter across the plastic table with the paper napkins and the little cups of salsa and felt something he hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. Not the kind that meant everything was perfect, but the kind that meant things were moving again, that the ground under his feet was solid. He wasn't where he wanted to be yet, but he was on his way. Later that night, after Sofia was asleep, he sat by the window. The street outside was quiet. He thought about the day everything changed. The scream, the truck, the fence he jumped without thinking. He didn't regret it, not for 1 second. Valentina had been thinking about something for weeks. She hadn't said it out loud yet because she wasn't sure how Miguel would react. She knew him well enough by now to know that he was proud, quietly proud, the kind of man who carried his weight without complaining, but who would refuse help if it felt like charity. So she had to think carefully about how to say it. One afternoon, they were sitting at the same small coffee shop where they had first spoken, the same window, the same 2 cups on the table. Valentina looked at him for a moment. Then she said it. "I want to create something at the company, a program, for people who need job training, for workers who lost opportunities they didn't deserve to lose." Miguel listened without expression. "I want to run it properly," she continued, "with structure, with real support, not charity, a real chance. And you're telling me this because—" He asked carefully, "Because I want you to lead it." Miguel set his cup down. "Valentina, hear me out. You know what it's like to be on that side. You know what people need, not what looks good on a report, what actually helps." He was quiet for a long time. "I don't want this because of us," he said finally. "I know that, and that's exactly why I'm asking you. Because you do it the right way. Because you wouldn't turn it into something comfortable and empty." Miguel looked out the window. The street was busy. People walking. People moving. "Let me think about it," he said. He thought about it for 4 days. On the 5th day, he called Valentina and said yes. Not because of the salary, which was more than he had ever made. Not because of the title. But because the night before he had sat with Sofia while she did her homework, and he had thought about all the fathers, all the mothers, all the people who were 1 bad week away from not being able to feed their children. He thought about Mrs. Carmen and the eggs and the beans she had handed him through the door. He thought about the shame that burned. He thought about how 1 chance could change everything. And he said yes. His first day at Herrera Holdings, Miguel arrived early. He wore the same button-down shirt from the property management interview, now pressed carefully. He walked through the front door of a building he had passed on the street dozens of times without ever imagining he'd work inside it. Valentina met him in the lobby. She didn't make a speech. She just smiled and said, "Ready?" "Ready," he said. His office was small, practical. No fancy furniture. He had asked for it that way. He wanted a space that felt like work, not like something out of a magazine. On his desk, he placed 1 thing from home, a drawing Sofia had made of the 3 of them, stick figures with big smiles, written underneath in her messy handwriting, "The best family." Miguel looked at it for a long moment. Then he got to work. The program Miguel built was called Second Step. It started with 12 participants in its first group, men and women who had lost jobs for reasons that had nothing to do with their ability to work, single parents, people who had missed time caring for sick family members, workers let go without reason. Miguel interviewed each of them personally before they started. He didn't ask them to fill out forms. He sat across from them and listened. He heard stories that sounded like his own. People trying to keep their heads up, people carrying more than anyone should have to carry alone. He went home after those first interviews and sat in his kitchen for a long time. Valentina called to check in. How did it go? Hard, he said honestly. In a good way. She understood what he meant. The program provided skills training, resume building, interview preparation, and direct connections to partner companies willing to hire. It wasn't fast. It wasn't easy. But it was real. Within 3 months, 8 of the 12 participants had steady employment. Word spread quietly through the community. People started calling, asking how to apply. Miguel's team grew. A second group started. Don Ernesto, who had been watching from a distance, called his daughter one evening. That man you chose, he said. He's doing something important. Valentina smiled. I know, Dad. Not because of the program. Don Ernesto added, because of how he does it. Like it matters. Like every person in that room matters. Valentina thought about the first morning she had watched Miguel walk past the coffee shop window. She had been right about him from the very beginning. Sophia turned 9 years old on a Sunday in October. Miguel asked her what she wanted for her birthday. She thought about it very seriously for 2 whole days. Then she came to him with her answer. I want all of us to go to the park. You, me, and Valentina. And I want churros. Miguel laughed. That's it. And a piñata, she added quickly. It was a simple birthday. A small group. Miguel's neighbor, Mrs. Carmen, came with her grandchildren. A few of Sophia's friends from school. Don Ernesto came in his wheelchair, dressed in his good jacket, looking more alive than he had in years. Valentina brought the cake herself. Chocolate, because Sophia had told her once in passing that it was her favorite. Valentina had remembered. That small thing made Miguel stop and watch her for a moment. She was crouched next to Sophia, helping her tie a ribbon on the piñata. They were both laughing about something. Sophia had gotten paint on Valentina's jeans, and instead of pulling away, Valentina just laughed harder. Miguel looked at the little crowd around him. Mrs. Carmen talking to Don Ernesto. Sophia spinning with a blindfold trying to hit the piñata. Valentina cheering her on. He thought about the morning he had carried that bag of cement, about the scream he heard, about jumping the fence. A single moment. And from that moment, all of this, he didn't believe things happened for a reason, but he believed that the choices you made in a single second could echo for years. He had made one choice, and it had brought him here. That evening, after Sophia fell asleep in the backseat on the way home, Miguel carried her inside. He put her to bed, tucked a blanket around her, and stood in the doorway for a moment. Valentina was waiting in the living room. She had stayed to help clean up and now sat on the couch with her shoes off, looking tired in the best way possible, like someone who had spent a good day. Miguel sat beside her. They were quiet for a while, not an uncomfortable quiet, the kind that meant neither of them needed to fill the space with words. Then Valentina spoke. Can I ask you something? Yeah. Do you ever regret it? Coming to find me after you found out the truth? Staying. Miguel looked at her. No, he said, but I want to ask you the same thing. Valentina tilted her head. What do you mean? Your life was simpler before. You could have just sent a check, done the polite thing, gone back to your world, and never thought about me again. She looked at him for a long moment. My life wasn't simpler, she said. It was emptier. There's a difference. Miguel nodded slowly. Valentina leaned her head against his shoulder. I didn't find you because I felt guilty, she said quietly. I found you because something in me knew there was a reason that mattered. And I was right. Outside, the street was still. Somewhere down the block, a dog barked twice and went quiet. Inside that small house, everything was exactly where it needed to be. 6 months after Miguel began working at Herrera Holdings, Valentina made an announcement at the company. The Second Step program was being expanded. 2 new cities, bigger funding, a dedicated team. The board approved it without argument. The results spoke clearly. Miguel stood in the back of the conference room during the presentation. He wasn't the one presenting. That wasn't his style. He let the numbers do the talking and slipped out when the applause started. Valentina found him in the hallway. You should have been up there, she said. I don't need to be up there, he replied. I just need the program to keep running. She smiled. You know you're impossible, right? Sophia says the same thing. Valentina laughed. It was the kind of laugh that filled a hallway. That afternoon, they left work together and walked to pick up Sophia from school. It had become part of their routine, without anyone deciding it. It just happened, the way real things often do. Sophia came running out of the school gate with her backpack bouncing. Dad, Valentina, guess what? What? They both said. I got the highest grade in my class on the science project. Miguel picked her up and spun her once. Sophia screamed and laughed. Valentina watched them and felt something quiet and full settle in her chest. She had spent most of her adult life building things. Companies, strategies, portfolios. She had never built anything that felt like this. This was the story that Addictive Stories was made to tell. Don Ernesto died peacefully on a Tuesday morning in November. He had been declining slowly for several months. His heart, the doctor said, tired from years of living hard and loving harder. Valentina was with him when it happened. Miguel was there too, sitting just outside the room, ready if she needed him. When she came out into the hallway, she didn't say anything. She just walked to Miguel and held on. He held her back. They stayed like that for a long time. At the service, Miguel sat beside Valentina, and Sophia sat beside him, holding his hand. Mrs. Carmen came. Several people from the Second Step program came, because word had reached them, and because Don Ernesto had visited the program twice and spoken to the participants as if they were family. After the service, an older man from the program, a construction worker named Roberto who had lost his job after an injury, came to find Miguel. He talked to me like I was worth something. Roberto said quietly, "The first time in a long time someone did that." Miguel put a hand on the man's shoulder. He was like that, he said. He saw people clearly. That night, Miguel and Valentina sat on the back porch of her apartment, looking out at the city lights. "He was proud of you," Miguel said. "You know that, right?" Valentina nodded, looking straight ahead. "He told me something once," she said. "He said the best thing he ever did was almost get hit by that truck, because it brought you to us." Miguel was quiet. Then he reached over and took her hand. 1 year after the day Miguel jumped that fence, the three of them were in the park on a Saturday afternoon. Sophia was running ahead, laughing at something only she found funny. The sun was out. The air was cool. It was the kind of afternoon that asked nothing from you. Miguel and Valentina walked behind her, side by side. "Do you regret it?" Miguel asked. Valentina looked at him. "Regret what?" "Everything. Getting involved. Changing your life. All of it." She stopped walking. He stopped too. She looked at Sophia, who was now spinning in circles with her arms out wide. Then she looked at Miguel. "I didn't change my life," she said. "What do you mean?" "I finally started living it." Miguel looked at her for a long moment. Then he smiled. A slow, real smile. The kind that came from somewhere honest. Sophia ran back to them, out of breath and grinning. "What are you two looking at each other like that for?" she asked. "Nothing," both of them said. Sophia rolled her eyes. "You're so embarrassing." She grabbed both their hands and pulled them forward. They walked like that, the three of them, through the park as the afternoon light stretched long and golden across the grass. A single moment on a street in San Antonio had started all of this. A scream, a fence, a choice made in less than a second. And from that one choice, a family, not the kind that comes from paperwork, the kind that chooses each other every single day. If this story moved you, you already know where to find more. Addictive Stories is where real life, real love, and real courage come together.